Well, Camila, Happy New Year, and it's very nice to see you again. I trust you're keeping well.
Thank you, Rodney, for having me. Happy New Year. We're doing well here and hope you and your loved ones are doing well too.
Thank you. So there's been a resurgence of COVID variously around the world. And I'm just curious, Camila, just to start with, how is the current health environment impacting things, if at all, in Brazil?
Yes. I think we can say that Brazil was one of the countries that suffered. I think all countries did, but we certainly had a relevant impact within the surges of COVID-19, especially in 2021. We had lockdowns in 2020, and then when things started to pick up here in Brazil and the economy started to pick up again, we also had new surges, which of course led to certain worries and procedures that were held back, IPOs were held back. But then as the vaccination progressed, we started taking a more positive outlook at things. I think right now, vaccination is well progressed in the states like São Paulo and the southeast of Brazil. That's also going well in the other areas of the country. So I think people are more optimistic as to picking up the economy and seeing an actual brighter outlook at the end of this tunnel.
Interesting. So, well, that's very, very positive. Now, I'm curious as to how that might have impacted businesses more generally. And I know that the M&A market has been very busy in Brazil. So tell me a bit about what's going on in the space of M&A.
Of course. I think as occurred in different parts of the world, as soon as the pandemic arose in 2020, there was a bit of a freeze, uncertainty. But as we walk through the path of this last couple of years, we've seen some really interesting M&A activities in Brazil. And I think the pandemic had a direct impact in that, as funny as that may sound, because that leveraged entities and also a lot of concentration in markets have been quite relevant in Brazil. And also two other things that maybe companies were not paying too much attention on, which is information technology and tax transformation, were also very relevant as we move to a home office workplace. So that also drove a lot of M&A activity in Brazil. Just to give you a perspective, in 2021, we have over 1,800 deals in Brazil, which involved, yes, it was busy. Good news, it was busy. And these deals involved around 700 billion reais, which is approximately $127 billion. So it's relevant activity. And we also had very interesting IPOs here in Brazil. We have several Brazilian entities. They are looking to the foreign markets to launch their public offers. So we do have several number of Brazilian entities opening a NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, even in Canada. But we also had 46 IPOs here in the Brazilian Stock Exchange. So this was all very busy, considering that we were going through the pandemic. But I think it has a lot to do with information technology and how that became even more relevant as we moved through home office, as we were on lockdowns, and also digital transformations. I think these were key issues. And also in Brazil, we also saw relevant activities on governmental entities. They were selling at least part of their business. So we still have, for instance, a lot of energy entities in Brazil. They're going, instead of public entities, governmental entities, they're becoming private entities. So that also led to a lot of activity. And of course, finally, financial institutions that are becoming digital banks. That's also relevant here in Brazil. We at KPMG Brazil were fortunate to work with telecom deals, infrastructure deals, especially energy, as I mentioned, and also several of these internalization procedures. So Brazilian entities opening and going public in the States or in Canada. We also were fortunate to work in a lot of these deals.
Gosh, it's really interesting, Camilla. I mean, it's almost as if the health pandemic, as terrible as it is, really sort of unleashed a spirit in the business community to look at themselves and figure out how to be fitter, leaner, and more successful and perhaps more responsive to customers and clients as well. So bad news, good news world. And in light of that, Camilla, I can imagine that a lot of that M&A activity, just thinking back to that comment on unleashing focuses on customers and value in the business, I can imagine that a lot of that activity is also focused on value creation, or looking at what elements of a business truly add value and which do not. I'm curious, is that the sort of activity that you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Ronnie. This is something that we've seen a lot in Brazil, especially as we have international players coming into the country and absorbing the very intricate landscape of Brazilian taxation. So there is a lot of value on the table when you take these international players that are coming into Brazil. For instance, how to better structure your chart, your corporate chart, to make the most efficient flow of funds out of Brazil into other countries. Brazil does not have a very complex treaty network, as is the case for other relevant international players, such as Luxembourg. So how does it play? Brazil does have corporate CFC rules. How does that affect my business? Royalties, intellectual property. This is all something that need to be looked into very carefully. So if we take a look at the deal cycle, and I like mentioning the deal cycle because Erickson, the leader here in Brazil, loves this form of looking into M&A transactions. If you take a look at the deal cycle, the acquisition is only the first step. Then you have to go into the ongoing business. And Brazil is very complex. We have different VATs. So we usually take this approach and let's assess how the company goes. Let's see what we found out on the due diligence, how we can improve and make the business here in Brazil, and of course, the cash extraction to the foreign shareholders more efficient. And the risk assessments, of course, because litigation in Brazil is also very present. So risk assessments, planning accordingly, and of course, respecting everything. Although Brazil is not a member of the OECD, we certainly observe what's going on with BAPS. So substance is very relevant. General and avoidance rules. We don't have a specific rule, but we have been seeing a lot of interest from the tax authorities in this regard. So how to make it efficient, also observing these principles.
Just a lot of stuff going on, Camilla, from, the unleashing of a significant number of deals. I think you mentioned something in the order of 17 to 1,800 deals.
118,000.
Oh, significant. And then $120 odd billion worth of activity. Just a significant amount of activity going on in Brazil. You must be keeping extremely busy at the moment.
Gladly, and we're glad we're keeping busy. Our team has grown substantially over the last years. We grew at least 80% in the last 2 years, so that's always good news. And the more activity we have, the more we learn, and the better we can assist our clients, and of course the KPMG network.
Well, what a nice note to end our discussion on, Camilla. So again, Happy New Year, and it's been very nice catching up with you again. Stay COVID safe.
Stay safe. Thank you, Rodney.